Hey guys, Youngblood Fantasy 91 here with another commentary for you wonderful people. I'm a very scientific guy. I like science, biology, chemistry, all that good stuff. And last semester at college I took an evolutionary biology course that discussed how the theory of evolution is pretty valid in terms of how our species arose, how other species came to be, and how natural selection as well as sexual selection and kin selection allow for certain genes and traits to be favored over others. In other words, I'm a proponent of evolution. But there are always others who tend to disagree on the issue. In fact, one user that I deeply respect, the 98 Funny Man, made a video about why he thinks evolution is bullshit. Don't get me wrong, I like the 98 Funny Man's videos, and I don't hate him at all, but I just wanted to make this commentary so I can respond to his questions and let him hear what supporters of evolution have to say on the matter. In fact, I even asked him if I could do a commentary, and he was perfectly alright with it, so if you have gripes about me making this, then I did all I could do to be civil about this. Simple as that. So I'll listen in and I'll see what I have to say about it.
Hey guys, what's up? It's the 98 Funny Man here, and oh boy, am I going to get a lot of stick for this. Today I'm going to be talking about something I've never really touched upon until now. Recently I was doing some research on evolution. I wanted to know more about it in more detail because I was skeptical about it. And I can safely say after much research, I can conclude that evolution, in my humble opinion, is complete bullshit.
Well, it is definitely your opinion, pal, but I think you should dig deeper into the topic of evolution, since evolution is a broad topic in general. In fact, like I said, there are entire college courses dedicated to evolutionary biology, so, I mean, evolution must be valid in certain respects.
And before you guys jump to conclusions and click off the video, I just want to let you know that I am not going to get all preachy. I'm not going to be a typical Christian and say, oh, the Bible, the direct word of God, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not going to do that. Good.
It's nice to finally hear an informed and mature argument about this, and not from an overwhelmingly in-your-face Christian apologist who thinks that science is this fake, flawed system that got us nowhere. Television, radio, and the computer that you can spout your extremist opinions everywhere. Yes, not all Christians are like that, but unfortunately some of them are.
Although I do believe in the existence of a deity, I don't believe that Christianity is the right faith, because of the constant contradictions and errors found within the Bible.
As for me, I guess you could call me an existentialist, since I think the meaning of life derives from our own definitions about what the nature of life is, rather than from a deity or a god that I believe that was a creative solution to the question of what is good and bad humanity struggled with since its beginning.
Hell, even the dietary laws are contradicted, as I mentioned briefly in my rant about blind critics. The reasons why I believe evolution to be total bullcrap is because I've spotted several flaws that evolutionists intend to disregard. And those flaws are as follows. 1. Evolutionists say that all life came from a single cell. Okay, well, that all sounds peachy keen, fine and dandy. But answer me this. Where did the first ever living thing come from? I mean, just think about it for a second. I mean, think about it for a second. Where did that first ever... How did that first ever living thing come into being?
Although that is a valid question, you can't say there hasn't been any effort placed in trying to solve that problem. There are plenty of hypotheses that attempt to explain how the first cell came around. For me, my favorite hypotheses include the lighting in the reducing atmosphere hypothesis, in which inorganic molecules in the atmosphere combined with an electric current to produce essential hydrocarbons so that cells can thrive. The Miller-Urey experiment actually attempted to create such early conditions, and they got amino acids as a result. Also, further experiments determined that you can create one of the basic 4 nucleotides for DNA, adenine, from hydrogen cyanide and ammonia. And another favorite of mine is that cells may have been formed through self-replicating RNAs, which are cousins of your everyday DNA molecule. And cell membranes could have been formed in contact with water, since the cell membrane is both hydrophilic and hydrophobic, and even RNA could have catalyzed the reaction to form the membrane. So really, dude, you can't discount all of evolution because it is difficult to explain the origin of the first cell.
You know, has anyone offered an explanation for that? Because I haven't seen any. And it's also a many question that evolutionists intend to disregard. And any evolutionist that does think it intends to ignore it, much like how Christians ignore their own flaws.
Not really. As I said, they are trying to solve the problem, and I don't think they are actively ignoring it.
And it's also a question that many scientists have failed to answer. When everybody says that evolution has been proved, well, in your opinion maybe, but until we know how the first living thing came into existence, I'm not convinced. So that's the first reason why I believe that evolution is bullshit. Number 2. Evolution, as some of us know, is the process of living cells changing over a very long period of time. Okay, once again, that sounds peachy keen, fine and glory. But answer me this. How does the cell change? How does the living cell manage to change form?
Well, right now I'm taking a cell biology course in college, and I'm here to say this right now. There are plenty of explanations for why cells change. Did you ever wonder why in the cell the mitochondria and the chloroplasts have their own DNA? Well, the answer could lie in the fact that these organelles could used to be independent prokaryotic cells, and soon these prokaryotic cells were engulfed by bigger, more advanced eukaryotic cells. This pattern continued for millions of years until both were dependent on each other to survive. Hence, the mitochondria and the chloroplast are present in animal and plant cells respectively. That is one way a cell can change form. Besides, you have processes like endocytosis, exocytosis, mitosis, and meiosis that involve plenty of cell modifications, which I won't get into because I would be stuck here forever trying to explain it. The idea to take home, Mr. Funny Man, is that you shouldn't disregard the parts of science that either you don't fully understand or things that aren't completely explained, because it's not like scientists are deliberately telling you the wrong thing, right?
And it's because of that factor also that I don't believe in evolution. Number 3. The third factor as to why I believe evolution to be bullshit is the fossil record. Now, I believe the fossil record to be extremely questionable, and here's why. The fossilization process is when bones buried in the ground lose their original minerals and get replaced with other minerals. And that would technically mean that when the bones are brought back up to the surface, they're not the actual bones, but just a bunch of minerals in the shape of the skeleton that was buried underground. Okay, remember that. Now let's have a thorough look at this. As I mentioned earlier, the bone's original minerals are long gone. And if the original minerals inside the bones are gone and have been replaced, then surely all of its DNA must have gone too, right? So, if the creature's DNA has gone, then how can these scientists conduct biological testing on it?
Oh, I don't know. Uranium-lead dating, samarium-neodymium dating, potassium-argon dating, rubidium-strontium dating, uranium-thorium dating, and radiocarbon dating all can accurately pinpoint which time period the organism came from through the half-life decay of radioactive elements. Carbon-14 dating can pinpoint old fossils from 5,730 years ago in if half of the carbon-14 present in the fossil is gone. And in fact, uranium-lead dating is very useful since the half-life of uranium-235 is 700 million years and the half-life of uranium-238 is 4.5 billion years. So yeah, radiometric dating can pinpoint where the organism comes from on the geologic record, thereby determining what era and period they come from, and thus determine what species it is. Does that answer your question?
So that's another reason why I don't believe in evolution. Number 4. Transitional forms. Okay, for those of you who don't know what transitional forms are, I'll tell you. Basically, a transitional form is when an animal is halfway or somewhat a percentage of the way through evolving into a perfect state. Like, for example, if there's a creature that's evolving into a bird, then the creature will probably have half-developed wings and possibly his body will be half covered in feathers, whilst the other half is covered in something else, like fur or scales or something, I don't know. So that's what a transitional form is. But I have a problem with this, because you see, if a creature needs to develop something that is crucial to its survival, like wings or a longer neck or a longer beak or whatever, it would not be able to obtain it in time. And because it doesn't have those means to survive, that means it's technically doomed.
Okay, then where do our wrists come from? We have wrists, right? So did Tiktaalik, a transitional species found in Nunavut that is considered to be a huge evolutionary discovery. If the transitional species has that trait and can pass it to its offspring, and if it is considered a useful trait, then of course the species can obtain it in time, and thus the species will survive. Transitional forms are hard to find because one set of traits that is selected for it in the species is spread to the offspring, and the other set of traits die out. So to be quite honest, transitional forms are stepping stones to our current morphology, and not invalid evidence as you seem to posit in your video.
It's doomed to extinction. So that's another reason why I don't believe in evolution. Number 5. The fifth factor is natural selection. Now, after doing much research on the whole natural selection thing, it wouldn't surprise me at the very least if it was ripped from a pagan belief, redesigned and redistributed to the people. Because that's what it sounds like to me. Sounds exactly like some old pagan belief. I mean, think about it. Natural selection is the process in which genetic traits are either built or lost. If genetic traits are built, the species which obtain these traits are set to live on and become stronger. Whereas if genetic traits are lost, the animal species which lost their genetic traits becomes weaker and might even possibly end up becoming extinct. And the building or destruction of these genetic traits occurs naturally. So basically, in short, natural selection is just basically nature deciding the future of your species.
You describe natural selection perfectly. Yes, natural selection is up to chance, and nature seems to decide which traits are favored or not. Darwin's finches offer prime examples of natural selection in action. But to be quite honest, you're leaving out things like sexual selection and kin selection that also play a role in how natural selection functions. Certain traits can be picked by females, and altruism by certain species can reduce the fitness of the one being altruistic and increase the fitness of another in return. And even that has its classifications, like reciprocal altruism that calls for altruism in return of the original animal's altruism. This is by no means pagan dogma, but rather a product of human nature and competition. And animal nature as well. If you don't believe me, check out Hamilton's rule, then get back to me.
And to me, that sounds like something a nature-worshipping pagan would come up with. And it wouldn't surprise me at the very least if pagans have started to incorporate natural selection to their own beliefs. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if they already believed it way before Darwin's theory came about. So that's also another reason why I don't believe in evolution. So yeah, those are the reasons why I believe evolution to be total bullcrap.
And that's the way it is. Well, the 98 Funny Man, while you do offer valid questions and it gave me a lot to think about, in the end, you just have to research the ideas more. Evolution is a complicated topic, and within it plenty of things are implied. The basis of ecology is implied in evolution as well, since there are a bunch of, as Darwin put it, indirect effects that cause one species to thrive and another to die out. College courses teach this sort of thing, so it is a very complicated and in-depth topic to comprehend. Just know that scientists, even if they disagree on certain things, cannot be fully disregarded, since there are plenty of evidence for evolution either way. You can believe whatever you want, but the fact remains, scientists are still trying to explain some of the questions you posited, and not evading them completely as you seem to think. They're on your side after all. Anyway, this is the end of my commentary. This is Youngblood Fantasy 91, and ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all on the brighter later.